Welcome to Healing Solidarity, the conference about reimagining international development. I'm Mary-Anne Clements, initiator of this conference, writer and consultant, and facilitator of the replenishment room. And in this conversation, I talk with Angela Bruce Raeburn. We talk race and development, the lack of a care ethic in international NGOs, the sexual abuse scandals in the sector, including Haiti, where she worked for a number of years herself, and what we need to be ready to do to challenge the status quo in our sector. This is a really fascinating conversation, and I really hope you'll enjoy listening to it and get a lot out of it too. So hi, Angela. It's good to be talking to you and to be interacting for the conference. So I just wanted to, well, maybe first of all, just to ask you to tell people about you, your name, who you are, and what you get up to, like what you do.
Yeah, absolutely. So first of all, thank you for asking me to be a part of your online conference. I appreciate it. I think it's valuable, the conversation, and I'm pleased to be able to contribute to the overall discussion that you're engaged in. My name is Angela Bruce Raeburn. I am actually a native. I was born on an island in the Caribbean, a British colony. One of many.
Right.
I was born in Trinidad and Tobago, but I grew up in Brooklyn, New York. My parents belong to that group of people, came to this country in the 70s, doing a big brain drain in the Caribbean, where a lot of Caribbean people were, looking to make a better life for themselves and for their children. And so my dad was, in that group, came to this country, to the US in the late 1970s. So grew up in Brooklyn, but grew up with a very Caribbean understanding of the world and approach to the world, perspective on the world, very much rooted in, Caribbean values, which, however that manifested itself. So I grew up in Brooklyn and went to high school in the U.S. as well, college in the U.S. as well. Went to a predominantly historically Black college and university in the U.S., which I think also helped to solidify and shape some of the perspectives that I have on the issues of race and how race interacts with other workplace issues. Went to an all-Black college. Also made that important to kind of the perspective there kind of shaped, what I wanted to do with my life and how I even, got to development and why I think that my voice is unique and needs to be heard as in this global discussion. So that's, a little bit about, me and, where I came from.
And right now you're I know you're in development and you've done a few different positions. I know. Just remind me what you're doing now, so for people to hear rather.
So right now I work for something called the Global Health Advocacy Incubator. The term incubator is kind of like a term now that's been used to kind of talk about these new ideas and how development is changing and how we can do things better and differently. So the incubator is quite an interesting concept. A lot of it is funded through the Campaign for Tobacco-Free Kids in Washington, D.C. and through Michael Bloomberg philanthropies. The idea of the incubator is to work on specific kinds of public policy, public health issues in the developing world, mostly on non-communicable diseases, but issues that kill people more prevalently in the developing world, like road safety, drowning prevention. You might be surprised to find out in some parts of the world, young kids die from drowning at high alarming rates. Maternal and reproductive health. So I currently work on the road safety team. I manage the global Bloomberg road safety work in the Philippines and in China. And we work on these risk factors that, according to WHO, is 5 areas that if we were to concentrate on mitigating some of them and improving behavior in some of these areas, in these 5 areas, we could see a reduction in road safety crashes and fatalities in these countries. So, so just to give a 2-second, what that really looks like, car seats, children in car seats, wearing a seatbelt, reduction in speed, just among some of the risk factors that, if improved, could improve road safety around the world. So I work on legislation, trying to work with the with Filipino local civil society to pass legislation that could allow Filipino kids, that could mandate Filipino children to be put in car seats when they're driving in cars, when they're riding in cars. So that's what I do. But I come from a background of, more on the humanitarian side, particularly around the earthquake, the post-earthquake reconstruction and humanitarian response in Haiti in 2010 after that earthquake. And so that's kind of been the area that I'm most interested in, where the bulk of the work that I've already done has been focused on that.
Sure. And in fact, it reminds me that the article that really caught my eye that you'd written was the one that was talking about the response to the safeguarding issues at Oxfam, which were in Haiti, right? And the sense that you have, and I definitely was really happy to see someone writing that the sense that, all the policies and procedures in the world are not going to solve the power issues, basically.
Right. But that's and I guess that could help us to segue into our discussion, but international development is consistently shooting itself in the foot. It's an area where we consistently talk about doing good, and we have all these lofty ideas, but we are in a place in development where we have been reluctant. We have been reticent. We've been going around in a circle trying to ignore the big elephant, right, in the room.
Right.
We've done it for years. And every time we get to these kinds of scandals that open up, and we look around and we look at all the ways that we can resolve it, but we have a reality, which is this power differential that exists in the local context that we have never wanted to face. And that has allowed us some of this negative to fester in these countries. And I think that all the great ideas and all the money spent and all the policies that we could look to implement can't address this differential in a real way. And there's a way to address it, but oftentimes most international organizations, that's not what they're interested in doing. So I wrote about that because I was just amazed at the amount of the articles that were written about the Haiti scandal. This consternation, this lamenting of, oh, why did this happen?
Yeah.
I could tell you why.
Right.
Ask me, ask any one of my colleagues in Haiti, ask any one of us. We can tell you. So I was just so fed up with the articles, the British, the foreign secretary, the what's her name? Penny Mordaunt?
Penny Mordaunt, yeah.
Yes, I wanted to say, hey, Penny, ask me. I can tell you the answer.
So while we're talking, let me ask you what she should have asked you.
Okay.
Let's spell it out for people.
Yes, Penny, let me tell you what you need to ask to get information.
Right.
So I just got so annoyed with these article after article. So I wanted to write about my perspective, my understanding of the problem. I felt that I was in a unique position at Oxfam. I'm Black, I'm a woman, I'm from the Caribbean,
Mm-hmm.
and that matters. I'm from the Caribbean. I'm not Haitian, but I'm from the Caribbean. And there's a certain connectedness that exists in the Caribbean.
Yes.
We're all more or less the same people, right? Historically. And so I go to Haiti, and all the conversations that I'm having with Haitian women about the earthquake, about the response, about the power differential, all these conversations I'm having every day.
Yeah.
Not complicated conversations, not just simple things. Saying things like, well, when the British guy comes from Oxfam International or Oxfam Great Britain, they're the voice of God. They come in, they have every answer. People who have never lived my experience telling me how they're going to solve my problem. They don't ask me my opinion. They don't care what I think, right? People, this is the crux of the problem. You cannot make a policy to help my life if you are not a woman who lived through the earthquake, who may have lost your home, who you are now living in a refugee camp. You cannot make a policy for my life without having connected with my life.
Yeah.
How can you connect with my life? You come to the camp. Yeah. Come talk to me. Yeah. I used to go to the camps. I met women in those camps. Women who look exactly like me. Yeah. Right? Right. But just by the sheer geography, right? I was born in Trinidad, and my life, took a different trajectory. But I am these women. I am exactly like them. I met women like me, 40 years old, in a camp, 3 children, trying to figure out what are they going to do when their kids can't go to school for a year. What is that? How are they going to get to access some of the humanitarian aid that was going to be given out? If they leave the camp, are they going to come back and find out that all their belongings have been tossed out? All these kinds of everyday survival stories. Yeah. Penny Mordaunt wants to know how this scandal evolved. Come, let me tell you about these survival stories. Let me tell you about these women and what they have to do to survive. And then let me tell you about all the great policies that you guys have sat in Oxford and in DC and all over the world where policy is being made. And then you come into these countries, no understanding. And then this is what else happens. They hire people. Yes, they hire local people. But they hire local people and then they hamstring them, right? Where these local people don't even have the leadership positions that can even be at the table to speak about the problems. So these local people are oftentimes the admin assistant, the chauffeur, the office manager, but not the person who's sitting at the table when we're talking about developing policy and funding it and advocating to the government. Those people are not at the table. So at the end of the day, there's this disjointed relationship that happens where you end up with policies or you end up trying to implement policies that there is no buy-in by local people, right? So when there's no buy-in, they're not doing what you're trying to do. They're not on the same page as you, right? So for 3 years, man, 3 years in Haiti. And this conversation was the exact conversation on day 1 as it was on the last day. Right. And so I sort of just got fed up and tired of this conversation. And I ran away from it because I couldn't stand one more second of this conversation. So when the scandal came back around, after the Me Too movement sort of catapulted this idea that women get harassed and wow,
wow.
Guys, wow, women get harassed. Okay. And I'm thinking, are you kidding me? Where have we been? And the A2 movement, right? So when that happened and people started, again, I was the senior policy advisor at the time. So I was the person I was the liaison between our office and the office in DC. So when it comes to the office in Haiti, I would say I knew a lot. Yeah. And I would say I knew a lot, not only because I made it my business, but because I am also a person, I'm from the Caribbean. I come to Haiti. When I come to Haiti, I have a whole new persona. I'm a sister. I want to hear you. So I put myself in and offered myself in that kind of way, which means that when people wanted to talk, people would tell me things. And I say that to kind of convey what happens when the power differential that's occurring in these countries, where the country director is some guy from Belgium or France or Australia, right? And he's there and he's the big boss and he's running his little kingdom, because essentially that's what it is.
And he's there because he's done it somewhere else, not because he knows.
And he's there because he's the disaster guru.
Yeah.
Right? Yeah. Because he's the voice of God. And and he's been in other disasters, other earthquakes, other tsunamis, other, cyclones and everything that happens around the world. Right? Yeah. So now this guy is the man. Right? Yeah. So the way the office is often structured, and you can look around across all these organizations, you'll see the guy from Britain, the US, Australia, New Zealand, England, and then there'll be so that person will probably be the country director, and then under that person there'll be like a senior policy advisor, again, probably someone that's coming from one of these countries, probably a white woman, right? Yeah. And then all the chauffeurs are going to be whatever country we're from. In Haiti, and Haitian, right? The office, the translator. There'd be maybe a policy, maybe a environmental officer, maybe. But when the decision-making conversation starts, it's oftentimes 4 white people in a room.
Yeah.
All right? And that may sound harsh, but it's true.
Often true, right? Yeah, absolutely.
Right. So 4 white people in a room, probably 2 white men and 2 white women. And then they talk about these people who they're trying to help.
Yeah.
And they come out the room and then they tell you what we're going to do.
Yeah.
And if you have any concern, any things going on, any concern about the country director, treatment of you, if there's any misconduct, it won't matter, because that is never the focus of the conversation.
Yeah.
Right? Yeah. So the focus of the conversation, and you know this, right? When you get on a call from the headquarters, and the call is made to say Haiti, it could be, you can interchange any country, Haiti, Nigeria, Mali, same thing. Yeah. The call goes like this. The person in DC is the person who initiates the call. That person is the senior policy advisor. That person is whoever they are. They initiate the call. And the call goes like this. Everybody gets on the call and everybody says, okay. And the person on the phone in DC or London says, let's get started. And they're going to run down the metrics. Yeah. And they're going to ask about how many articles or op-eds got placed. How many did you talk to the government minister? Did you do this? Did you do that? And you're checking every box. Check, 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 check.
Yeah.
But in any of those calls, is there any conversation that says, so let's talk about how everybody's doing?
Mm-hmm. Mm-hmm.
Nobody cares.
Yeah.
Right? Let's talk about what's going on in the office. What's the, let's talk about how people are feeling, behaving, concerns. There is no care. And this is the thing that I want to talk about in my evolution on this topic. There's no care.
Yeah.
Because frankly, we need to make sure our donors are happy.
Mm-hmm.
So there's no care. And the lack of care is what allows this kind of scandalous behavior to really fester and to become a thing, to become normal.
Yeah.
Right? And so a person like me now, I mean, I could be a person where I'm in the country and I could get people talk to you. They tell you things.
Mm-hmm. Mm-hmm.
But what you know is people are afraid of losing their jobs.
Yeah. Mm-hmm.
If you're a woman in Haiti and you have a job at one of these NGOs, you are going to be quiet because you know the level of the difficulties in finding this kind of position.
Yeah.
And so a lot of times you're willing to take all kinds of abuse, right?
Mm-hmm. Right.
And so the part that I think is lacking in the work that we do is there's no ethic of care.
Mm.
That's not, and I use ethic of care very, very precisely. That's what I mean. That we don't have the ethic of care. We in the big picture, we see ourselves as doing good.
Right.
Oh, I'm helping. But when you peel away some of the layers and you ask, are we really helping? I don't know. And I think because we lack an ethic of care, because there's not enough attention paid to this particular issue,
Mm-hmm.
that has allowed these predatory behavior, this bad treatment, misconduct to become the norm. And because it is, and because that's a reality, and you connect it to the reality of what the economic situation in many of these countries is, and people are prepared to take whatever abuse that is heaped upon them to keep their jobs. And mostly it's women in these jobs, because they are oftentimes the one with the burden of care of the family.
Yeah.
Right? So that's what you get. So when I saw these articles where people were like lamenting, I thought, are they seriously kidding me? I was offended, frankly, by some of the consternation and the hand wringing and the wailing of organizations about this misconduct. Are you kidding? I could tell you exactly how this work is going to look, and also what can be done to fix it. Mm-hmm. And that is also where I think we have fallen short, because whilst we are lamenting about the how negative this has been, I feel that all this is about protection of the organization.
Yeah.
I don't think that it's about protection of the people. Certainly not.
Work, even. Yeah.
Not. Nobody cares about these people. The reality is it's about protection of the organization. So when I wrote the first article, I got so much pushback.
Really?
Oh, and from mostly white women. Because I think the intersection of gender and race is so fraught with danger, right? White women don't want to think that race matters.
Yeah.
Right? So I'm thinking.
Sorry, go on.
No, go ahead.
I was just going to say, it could be even especially in this work, right? Because so many of us white women, like me, I think we walk into it thinking we're going to make a difference.
Yes.
And we probably walk into it without a full awareness of all these power dynamics and the stuff we're going to encounter. And once we start falling over it, we get kind of into it for whatever reasons, you know. We want our career, we actually need to earn money, we've got families to, and all these things. And then we actually don't want to hear that, you know, the reality, right?
Right.
You know, so yeah.
So it's the truth.
Yeah.
That's the truth.
Yeah.
So the pushback came from mostly women. And I felt compelled at that point to push back even further, you know. And so I started writing more about it. And then I got on DevX to talk a little bit about it. And I thought, come on, stop deluding yourselves. Here's some of the realities of the work that we do. If we want to do good, let's do good. But let's not pretend that what we're doing don't have its own internal complexities that have to be faced.
Yeah.
And so when we talk about the solution, I feel that the solution requires a concerted decision, a focused acceptance by international organizations of the issues of race and gender, inclusion, diversity, what it really means. If you're an international organization and you don't have a person working on your issues of diversity and inclusion, then you miss the point. You miss the point because you have an assumption of what you think diversity and inclusion actually means. I'm not only talking race, I'm not only talking gender, I'm not only talking about sexual orientation. None of that's not only it, but it's about diversity of perspective, right? Diversity of economic status, right? I may not have gone to an Ivy League school, but my perspective is valuable. And how do we include people in this discussion? But development, like any other sector, it's oftentimes you get jobs because of people that you connect to people through, networks that are created by schools and all this other things. So when you look at some of the backgrounds of some of these people, they're Oxford people, Cambridge people, Harvard people, Stanford people, those people, right? They're not the people that may not have gone to some of these schools, or more importantly, from some of these countries. So if you're an international organization and your understanding of diversity and inclusion is so narrow, you miss the point. And you will continue to work in an environment where your progress and your understanding of the way your programs are going to evolve will continue to remain what it is, which is in almost all these cases, it's just a check of the box until the money runs out and then you leave. This is why today in 2018 we're having conversations about in development that there's been not a whole lot of progress made. Right. So then we talk about the next thing, which is so first, inclusion and diversity has to be a priority for your organization.
Yeah.
The second thing that you need to really understand is that you need to be able to build a bridge from the headquarters to the local office and the local office to the headquarters. You have to build a bridge. You have to build a bridge that is inclusive, that is, and for me, if I were building it, I would start in the country office. I wouldn't start in the headquarters. I don't care. That's not where you start. Start in the country office. Find out from these women that you are there to protect. Find out from them. What do they see? Even define protection for them. Define protection. I suspect that if you ask a woman in Nigeria or Haiti about what they want in a workplace environment, it might be very different to what you and I might think. What is it that, define, sexual harassment. Tell us what it is, what it means. What do you understand about what it means?
Mm-hmm.
The whole body of information that we could get, that we could gather from really connecting to the local office. Then I will build a curriculum around what they tell me.
Yeah.
Then I will train you based on what you tell me. Then I will ensure that in my training of these people, I would want to make sure that everybody was taking part, from the top to the bottom, from the top, the country director, all the way down to the person who cooks for the office staff in the kitchen.
Yeah.
Everybody needs to be a part of this conversation, right?
Right.
Then you have to build in feedback loops to kind of find out if what you think, what your answers, what you think they say, what you think they want is actually what you've delivered.
Mm.
Right? That's a way around it. But instead, that's not what's going to happen. I could tell you exactly what's going to happen, right? What's going to happen is all the organizations are going to start hiring people called the director of safeguarding, and all of a sudden safeguarding is going to become the new buzzword.
And the adverts are already out, right? I've
There
seen them already.
And you're going to hear about these safeguarding people. You're going to ask, who are these safeguarding people? Where did they come from? Because obviously they weren't safeguarding all this time, right? Because if they were, we wouldn't be having a conversation about safeguarding.
Yeah.
So where are these safeguarding experts coming from, right? That's what I would ask. As a person who's interested in this topic, that's what I would ask. But and at the end of the day, the safeguarding expertise is going to be about protection of the organization, right? And these people may be lovely people. I'm not casting aspersions on them as people or as qualifications. I'm saying that it's a very easy fix to hire a safeguarding person, put the onus of responsibility of the organizational bad behavior on this one person, right?
Mm-hmm.
And then feel that you've done your responsibility.
Yeah.
I submit to you that that's actually will do absolutely nothing.
Yeah.
If the safeguarding don't start in the local context, then the safeguarding is wasting energy and time.
Mm.
Yeah. Right. And so that's it. This is this is what I think. This is what I think based on who I am, my perspective of being the Black woman from the Caribbean, a developing person's understanding of the world. I think that's my impression. And I think I belong to a group called Black Women in Dev. And this group also came as a sort of result of the scandals that broke in the earlier part of the year. And this brilliant African-American woman started this idea that just to have a place for Black women to meet and talk about development work, the difficulties of entering, the difficulties of accessing leadership. And this woman has just sparked a movement. Just by the fact that in the month of March, she had maybe 30 or 40 people. And now in August, we're over 2,000. It's a closed Facebook group. But we are looking at how to make it into a platform for voices like ours to be raised.
Great.
Right?
Right.
And when you read the opinions of these women in the group, when you hear about their experiences working in the sector, you realize, oh my gosh, no, Black women are silenced in this area. They are silenced from the leadership suites to the all the way down. They're silenced. Yeah. Their expertise is not valued. They're constantly assessing themselves about how to get in, assessing their value. It's consistent across the board.
Yeah.
And so as a woman in this area, I am now realizing that women call me up and text me and Facebook message me and ask me to advise them I didn't even realize that I was getting to become an advisor, but a topic that just seems very natural to who I am. And all of a sudden, I realize I have to talk about it a lot because I feel like there's so much information that we are, and that we're behind. We're behind in terms of the access to working in this field and the access to the leadership in this field, and we are treated. We are constantly in a struggle with white women.
Yeah.
And certainly with white men.
Yeah. And it's, well, I wanted to say something like it's ironic and ridiculous precisely because of the work we're trying to do, that should be the case, particularly when so many of our organizations are talking about, you know, empowering women and girls. If it's not possible to do that in the way we do our work with the people working in our organizations, let alone those that want to work with them but don't know how to get in, then how can we ever say we're trying to do that with anyone else, right?
Right. It's true. And so we can't even fix ourselves internally, and yet we go outside to tell other people. You know, a lot of people say the U.S. is the least moral authority on any of these topics. I have friends who say to me, please, you guys can't speak, okay, because you guys are completely insane. So that's the truth. You're right. So now we want to, you know, part of what we want to do in Black Women in Dev is to build a platform, build a movement of, you know, Black women wanted to advance our ideas and our voices in this field. You know, so and
I feel like it feels so fundamental to me that shift should happen. And I think it's almost like you've talked about two things, but they're really connected. So it's like the place for Black women within, you know, development organizations. And then there's this whole dynamic between kind of country offices and sort of head offices or whatever, the field and the office as well. You know, there's this whole power dynamic. And it feels like, to me, like those, they feel pretty entrenched in how organizations currently work.
Right.
Like the way that people have been used to doing things. But I think a lot of people listening might also feel like, but, you know, we always include like talking to communities, or we all, you know, there's that lip service paid, right, to kind of the involvement of people. And what you're speaking to, and I 100% agree with you, is that actually it's not actualized in how we do stuff, you know?
No.
So we say we've listened to people, but we haven't really so much of the time, right?
Right. Because what we do is, you know, when I was in Haiti, I would meet 25-year-old white women who would come to Haiti and go in the field and talk to people outside the city and all that, and come back as experts.
Yeah.
I used to always be blown away by that. Right. When you say you talk to people, what do you do with the information that you get from people, from them? That's what I think is interesting, right? So you know, I would meet young white women that went to Haiti after the earthquake and spent a week, and then
they come back an expert.
Absolutely, come back and put on their CV, Haiti experience.
Yeah,
and I'm thinking, really? And these women were able, I know personally of people who were able to take that 1 week, 1 month, 3-month experience in Haiti and take that all the way to high profile jobs in their countries and at the UN.
And yet there's all the women living in Haiti have more experience in being a woman in Haiti, right?
Right.
Kind of obvious, but it doesn't always seem to land, right?
And you know what else you get? You get pushback from women who say that's not fair. It should be about qualifications, which then really makes me mad, because now you're talking. So now what you're telling me is that qualifications is a binary choice, right? That it's always a choice between the qualified white male and unqualified everybody else.
Yeah.
Right?
Yeah.
That's essentially what you're saying. Because if you say it should be about qualifications, then you could at least admit that you could be facing a situation where there's a qualified white male and a qualified woman like me.
Yeah.
Right? And we're two equals. So now how do we choose?
Yeah.
Right? But oftentimes the binary choice is framed as the white male is always the most qualified.
Yeah, almost by default.
Almost by default.
Yeah.
And then whoever else is on the other side is almost always unqualified. So then you come up with this thing where you're like, nobody wants to choose the person that's not the most qualified. And people love to speak about merit because we pretend that we work in a meritocracy. Yeah. And so we end up with this idea that, who's getting these, who's getting the job, right? And so a lot of people, especially in the US, because, we're a society that is very delusional about ourselves and about the truth in many ways. So you will get a lot of negatives about, about someone I've had people say to me, so Angela, you think because you're Black and you're from the Caribbean that you are more able to work in a place like Haiti? And my answer is yes.
Yes. Yeah.
I am, actually. Let me tell you why. Because aside from the Black and the woman from the Caribbean, I have 3 master's degrees. My French is fluent. Okay? So so what I'm saying to you is, in addition to all the requirements, there's also the requirements that we don't really talk about, right? And that's the ones that people are uncomfortable talking about, right? This idea that what makes you think that just because you're Black, as opposed to listen, I'm saying that my perspective on being born and growing up as a person with a developing world perspective on the world has its value. And the work that we do oftentimes requires, in addition to the qualifications, the obvious things like language and degree and all these things, there's also these intangibles that sometimes you need. And I think that as a person who, with the background that I had being in Haiti, it was a personal crusade of mine to be the voice of people in the office, because I felt that it was necessary to convey what was happening, what people were feeling, what people were thinking. And I think that that's what I mean. Not necessarily that just because, not only because I'm a Black person, a Black woman. But I don't want us to sort of minimize why that is also important, because I feel like oftentimes that's what we do, so that we can pretend that we are in this colorblind environment.
But we are so not, right? And I think about, like, for people listening, particularly white people listening, like I who hear and understand what you're saying, I want to put a question to you, which is like, and I've got my own answer, but I'm going to ask you. I just realised, what should we do in like personally in relation? So there's obviously one thing about if we're recruiting people and how we could do that differently. There's something about us as well, like what our own thing, like what do we need to be ready to do or willing to do to be part of shifting this? And it obviously doesn't fall on any one individual or even any one organization.
Right.
Structural issue, definitely.
Yeah.
But what do we need to be willing to do individually? What do we need to be willing to lose as well, right?
Right. Control.
Yeah.
You need to be willing to lose control, to have control. Organizations, you go into organizations and you run into them all the time, especially when we're dealing with women. White women in these countries think they're more Black than me, or they're more African than me, or more Caribbean than me. You're not, and have some humility. Understand that you're not. right? These are areas that you got to really be open to thinking about, and thinking about how your behavior, your opinions, how it manifests itself when you're being observed by people in the local context.
Yeah.
Have some respect for the fact that that's not your culture. You're here in my country as a visitor. You're here in my country because your job is such that you're here to bring assistance to us for whatever the particular project is. But you are a visitor in my home. With that comes a certain sort of a certain emotional intelligence and maturity that comes with that you must be able to be open to understanding what that looks like. Mm-hmm. That's one of the things that you need to be able to give up. But in terms of what to do, when you're at the leadership table, look around your organization. There's so many people that you don't pay attention to them because they're not in the leadership team and they don't have anything to say. But if they're from that country, they have a lot to say. They may not say to you, but they have a lot of opinions.
Yeah.
I've yet to meet a young Haitian woman that didn't have a perspective on the Haiti reconstruction. Mm-hmm. All of the young women I interacted with had an opinion, had ideas, had thoughts, none of which were shared, but they had a lot of opinion. Be prepared to hear what you don't want to hear, right? That's the work that we do. Yeah. That's the work that we do. And I think, when I say humility, I cannot tell you how offended I used to be. When I would meet these young people, 25-year-old white women from wherever, France to US, and they're like, in Haiti, this is the way it is. And I'm thinking, calm down, bring it down a notch, right? Recognize that you're a visitor in this country. Yeah. And with that comes some responsibility. Have some humility. Mm-hmm. Know that there are people who have been here and they will be here long after you are gone. Yeah. Working on this. For many people, this is a lifetime. I have a very, very dear friend in Haiti. She's like my sister in so many ways. Mm-hmm. And she would say to me, when she would write me, she would say, "My Caribbean sister, how are you?" And we would start to talk. And this is a woman who I think brilliant, knowledgeable, but a person who loves her country, who has a lot of opinions about her country, mm-hmm. and who has a lot to share about her country. And I would, in so many instances, defer and say, well, why do you think this is the reason? What do you think is the better way? Because I realized that in as much as I learned a lot about Haiti, being a person who I wrote my dissertation for for graduate school on Haiti, mm-hmm. on Haiti electoral politics, I'm still not Haitian, mm-hmm. Mm-hmm. Right? I'm a Caribbean person, which I feel connect me to Haiti. Yeah. But at the same time, I want to always be 100% always cognizant of the fact that I am not Haitian. Yeah. And at some level, the perspective of people from there, and beyond lip service, like you said, rightly so, that we listen to, we say that we're consulting with local people. We consult with local people. We don't listen to them, and we don't take their opinions and put it into practice. Yeah. But we do right on our...
Unless we like it, maybe.
Unless we like it. If we don't, and we better like it a lot.
Yeah, it has to be basically the same idea that we had.
Yes. It must be our idea, really, just coming out of their mouths. Yeah. And that's what you got to be willing to do. You have control of this idea that you are here to empower me. Yeah. You are no white woman is coming to Haiti to empower anyone. Yeah. Understand that you cannot empower me. Another thing you can do, history is a important teacher. We come in these countries with no historical context.
Mm.
So many people come in these countries without having read one book about anything that's happened in these countries. I think it should be a requirement.
Yeah.
Do you understand why France and Haiti are connected? Do you understand it? If you are a Frenchman, a French woman, and you come to this country, do you get it? Yeah. Do you understand the long, deep-seated history of animosity and vengeance between these two?
Stepping into. Yeah, right.
Right? Do you? Because if you don't, and you're coming in, you better know
you're not ready, basically.
You're not ready. Yeah. Stay home. Yeah. Stay home. You know, even the Caribbean, you know, the British politics and you know, when you have a man like the head of the EU, I think. The head of the EU was recently commenting on Belgium, or was it the Prime Minister? Oh, one of these European gentlemen. I think it may have been the Belgian head of state, maybe.
Okay.
He was at the EU conference, and he was talking about Belgium and the Congo, and he said something insane like, "Oh, it's time to look to the future." And I thought, with all due respect, sir, if you are a person from the Congo and you hear a person from Belgium say it's in the past, King Leopold and his destruction of the Congo, in the past, you are sadly mistaken.
Yeah, exactly.
And you have no idea. So this is what I'm talking about. This kind of tone-deaf way of speaking about these problems.
Yeah, right? As if it's all as if colonialism and whatever these previous histories are sort of done.
Let it be done. It's over. Yeah. You know, we have wreaked havoc on your nation.
But now we're going to come and help you.
But now we're going to come and help you. And guess what? We have all the ideas, right?
And all the answers.
So this is the kind of lack of, real respect and, that comes with development that now you can see people are just tired. They don't buy it. They don't believe it anymore, right? And this is why you see all this anxiety rising and people revolting against these ideas, and you're hearing all these stories and all these scandals are breaking because people are fed up. And I think it's only gonna get worse because we don't lead. We don't lead with our authentic selves, right? We don't lead with the conversations about truth, about race.
Yeah.
Bring it up, talk about it, put it in the open. Let's deal. But we don't. We pretend it race. I don't see color. Of course, this is how we work. So I don't see how we get better without acknowledging and facing some of our very uncomfortable truths.
Yeah. Yeah, I 100% agree with you. And I know that I don't necessarily know how that happens, but I think for me, like, the point of the conference is simply like to invite people to have some of these conversations, and because I feel like they've been with me, but like there hasn't been always a space to speak them, right. Or like they come out of me and then I'm like, this is really weird, and then like it gets put back away again because it's not,
because the space is important. This is the thing. This is why I like Black Women in Dev. It's a space for really Black women important. And the conversations are beyond rich, beyond intense. I am just so amazed with some of these women that I hear their stories of them, the education they've gotten, trying to get into this field, how they feel so discouraged, how it's just amazing. So I know. And I really want to be at the forefront of creating a space for this conversation to happen. So, I really applaud your endeavor here on talking about the humanitarian sector and what it really means, especially in a time of real assault on poor and marginalized people around the world, and what that actually is what it manifests itself into at this point, which is anger, resentment, anxiety, in some of these countries.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, and so I hope that, well, what do I want to say? I just lost my thread then. I hope no, I'm just thinking, like, what it seems to me is, like, from what I've heard from what you said and my own thoughts as well, it's like the first step with all of this is for people to get really aware of what they're not doing and what they don't know. It's like, because what I see sometimes is that people hear this kind of conversation and then they're like, how can I fix myself? How can I fix myself? And I actually think, like, what I invite people I talk to do is, like, to just kind of just get comfortable with being wrong, or get comfortable with not knowing, because I think there's so much that's entrenched in how we do things that we have to, like, maybe painfully pick apart,
Right.
And so I feel like you actually can't fix it, and in fact that whole mentality that you can fix something,
right, that too
is where it starts from, right?
You cannot fix it. That's not your role. That's not your responsibility anyway. It's not like no one is saying that you're responsible. I am not holding any white woman that I meet responsible for this. That's not the thing. No. But it's this idea that you can fix things that really fascinates me, really. That you think that you come into this country after, 100 years of devastation, mm-hmm. and you can empower me. Mm. I had a funny conversation like this with a friend of mine in Haiti. We were laughing because we were just thinking about, and this is a true story. I was in Haiti as a volunteer after the earthquake. Mm. I was working way up in the country, in a little town outside of Port-au-Prince. But to get to this town was very difficult. You had to take a car, and then you had to stop, and then you had to walk. Mm. And I was prepared for my walk. I had on my fabulous mountain boots. I had, like, water. I had a hat. Because I was thinking I was going up Kilimanjaro, mm-hmm. right? Mm-hmm. Because from my little world of my comfortable life in California, I was literally headed to Kilimanjaro, okay? Or Everest, okay? But basically, it was a hill, right? Yeah. And as I was going up this hill, myself and a Canadian woman, a white woman who was also a volunteer with me, who we became friends. Her and I are walking, and we're slowly walking, and we're like, oh my God, this is like the worst, And we were just beside ourselves with the heat, the lack of everything. And then all of a sudden we became aware of of people behind us.
Right.
And we turn around, and we have created a literal traffic jam. And we were like, what in the world? So we stopped, and we sort of stepped aside. But the Haitians they're so full of grace. They allowed us to, walk up this hill, blocking their way from doing work, right?
Right.
And we are just like, oh my God, what are we doing here? And so I stopped, and I stepped aside, and we let the people pass us. And then the last person to pass us was this woman. She could have been, I don't know, her face was like not a wrinkle, but she was an older woman. And I said to her, oh my gosh, how do you do this every day? And she looked at me, and she said, je suis obligée. Mm. Je suis obligée. I have to. I am obligated. Mm. Because for her, it was a matter of life and death.
Yeah.
If she didn't come across this stupid little hill, she couldn't get water.
Yeah.
Because the water was on one side and where she lived.
Yeah.
So I say this to say, you cannot empower her.
No.
Right? You cannot empower her because every day she does something empowering for herself. She gets up and she makes this trek. And by the way, she was wearing slippers.
Yeah.
And I say that because I was wearing mountain boots and I thought I was going to die.
Yeah.
I thought I was going to die. Me and my friend, we were like, this is the worst ever, right? So no, you cannot empower her. You cannot. Yeah? And
Yeah.
if you want to use the word empower, who you can empower is our government to do a better job.
Yeah.
Okay? If you're going to do advocacy around gender issues so that her trek across the water, the hill is not fraught with danger.
Yeah.
Maybe that's where your work is. But your work is not to empower a person who travels across that terrain twice a day to get water. You, lady, in your hiking boots, okay, are not going to empower her. And for me, that's what I embrace in Haiti. That I am not there to do any of those things because those things I cannot do. You know? So I say to white women who want to work in this field, you need to hear that.
Yeah.
Right? You're not empowering anyone. Actually, you're more annoying them than anything else. Just to be blunt.
Getting in their way.
Just to be blunt. Yeah?
It's going to be my last question, Angela.
Yes.
Is there any role for white people, Westerners, people in the global north, whatever the words we want to use are, who want to be in supportive solidarity? Is there any role for us, or should we pack up and do something else? Because that's okay too, right?
That's a great question, and the answer is absolutely. There's a role, absolutely. I tell the white women I'm in this work, we need your voice to challenge what we've been doing in the past.
Yeah,
challenge what we've been doing. Don't fall for the status quo. It has not worked. It has not benefited us. Don't support it. So in leadership, challenge yourself to listen to voices that you don't ordinarily listen to. That's your role. That's how this is going to change. And that's what's happening with me too, right? Because for all these years, all these women, have been abused and mistreated, and then this thing happens, and the floodgates have been opened. Prepare to challenge the status quo in Hollywood, in the media. I mean, I look at the fact that we have had media moguls in this country, in our country, go down. And I cheer. I cheer the white women who put it all on the line to tell their stories. I cheer for them because that's what it's going to take for us to bring this structure down and to reimagine a structure that is more equitable and fair. So yes, absolutely. But I need white women to hear that and to understand that when we talk about this, don't worry. Don't worry about empowering me. I don't need that. But I need you to be prepared to challenge a status quo that in many ways you may have benefited from.
Yeah.
Some of you with the big jobs, some of you in the corner suite. You got to be prepared to give for that to not be the case anymore. How much do we want that? I don't know. But but if the question is what is the role, that is the role.
Yeah.
The role is to make to push open and create spaces for voices to be heard that are not your own. That's the role. And even in the US, I was saying to someone, I was on this program and we were talking, and I was talking about the Black Lives Matter movement in the US. And I said to and a white woman asked me, I said, well, white women got to come to Black Lives Matter rallies. They got to come to that conversation too. Black Lives Matter is not only about us. It's about the fact that as Americans, are we prepared to admit that we have police brutality? Yeah. And are we going to challenge it? That's all. It matters not the color of the person. But are we going to say, yes, we have an issue, we have a problem in this country with gun violence and certainly with police? Are we going to open ourselves to that conversation? Yes or no? Because if you say yes, it means that you, the white woman, will come to protests, to meetings of Black Lives Matter and be in the audience and be supportive. If you say yes, police brutality is a problem, then you can come to these discussions. But if you don't think it's a problem, then you're not going to come to those discussions, right? And that's just a local issue that we're dealing with in the U.S.
Yeah.
So that's my take on it.
Yeah, and it's and we could totally think about that in the context of development. Like, are you going to be willing to stand up to these structures or not, right?
And in the context of development, yes. When you're sitting at the management meeting at Save the Children or Oxfam or wherever you are, can you say, all right, we're hiring a director of safeguarding. Where's the person going to be housed?
Yeah.
In our office in DC, in London, or we send them to Nigeria?
And who are they going to be? And how are we going to assess why they're the right person? And all the things you
How are we talking about these people?
Yeah.
Right? So if we're not prepared to challenge even that small notion, I don't know that we're prepared to challenge the bigger problems that we're facing in the sector. So,
Yeah, I absolutely agree with you. Thank you so much for your time, for your voice, for all of it.
I'm so happy. I'm glad. I hope I've answered what you needed to hear.
Absolutely. And it's not what I needed to hear, it's what needed to be said, right?
I hope so.
I hope so too.
Yeah.
So have a good weekend. Thank
you, and to you as well.
Thank you. Take care. Stay
Bye.
in touch. Bye. You've been listening to me, Marianne Clements, in conversation with Angela Bruce Raeburn, and this is the Healing Solidarity Conference. Thank you so much for joining us today. If you'd like to spend a bit more time with this conversation and with the ideas and suggestions in it, or with any of the others in the conference, don't forget you can make a contribution to support the production of this event and get access to recordings and ongoing conversations about these themes and ideas. Just click the link below this video to find out more. Thank you.